Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Facebook Live. We've got the pleasure of being up in Blackburn at St Thomas's C of E Primary School, where we'll be having a chat to Liam and Judith, who will be talking us through the rewards and the challenges of teaching for mastery. So just before we get started, some quick introductions. I'm Faye Mosley and I work in the editorial team in primary maths at OUP.
And I'm Judith Myhill, and I'm a teacher at St Thomas's and maths subject lead and a local SLE.
I'm Liam Noon, I'm assistant head teacher and also the mathematics lead.
Great, so thanks so much for joining us, Liam and Judith. I wonder if we could just get started by talking a bit about your mastery journey so far.
We started it
just after the new national curriculum came out.
Yeah, we'd sort of started on our journey towards it by adopting quite a strong CPA approach throughout the school.
Okay.
Because of doing maths interventions, we decided that children who didn't need interventions also benefited from that approach. So we started to change our calculation policy to start to include that. And then with the new national curriculum, what we were doing wasn't working with the new national curriculum.
Okay.
And we felt that we needed to address the issues that we had.
Yeah. And we wanted it to be more in line with the national curriculum, so focusing on that reasoning, the fluency and the problem solving. We felt, although we did have really good SATs results that year, the first year of the change, we felt we were missing quite a lot out, especially the problem solving and the reasoning.
Yeah.
So we delved around, didn't we? Did a lot of research, looked at those programmes that were out there, and making sure what we chose was best for us as a school.
Great.
I think we were a bit tired of trying to play catch up and trying to pull children up to meet the high expectations of the new national curriculum, and it felt like a hard slog. And for us, mastery, just the change of mindset of the way that you approach teaching seemed to make it a little bit easier for us.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more about that mindset. How do you think that's changed since you've adopted a mastery approach?
Well, I'd say everybody's mindset's changed, haven't they? From the pupils themselves, they've got higher expectations of themselves, they've got a can-do attitude towards it. You find that they're tackling problems more independently, and with the staff, it's completely changed the way that they think about teaching maths. They've slowed everything down. We're talking about the CPA approach. There's more concrete resources being implemented. But ultimately the biggest one was having that kind of growth mindset where all the children can achieve, and making sure there's no preconceptions of what a child can do.
Yeah.
And really giving everybody that opportunity to show what they can do.
And in the old system where you had higher ability groups, lower ability group, middle groups, you would pigeonhole those children and expect a higher ability child to be able to do everything, and to be able to sort of do the harder work without having the layers and the steps up to the harder work. But now, because we don't pinpoint those children, and even when we're working, we might say, well, today so and so was a quick grasper, but tomorrow in a different topic that child could be learning more slowly than others. So it becomes very fluid, and I think
even just the next objective within that journey, different children can achieve it at different times. So three-way differentiation has completely gone. It's very fluid within the lesson. Teachers are much more reflective upon the practice. So if a group of children haven't got it, then they will target those first thing in the morning, or the afternoon, whenever they're doing it, where the other children could then be continuing from where they were the day after. They could be in the practice books practicing, they could be doing an activity, let's explore, putting your thinking caps on. There's so many different avenues that those children can do whilst the teacher teaches those children again, and then brings them all back together.
And just high expectations. Our teachers now, they'll say to me, I'm really surprised that child A has managed to do that. I would never have guessed that they'd be able to do that. So they definitely have shifted up their expectations of the children.
And the language has completely changed as well, hasn't it? The mathematical language that the children are using. They talk maths now. The staff talk maths.
That's great. They've got all that vocabulary at their disposal, and That's really good. So I know a lot of teachers sort of wonder how they're going to keep their whole class together at one stage, and you've touched on that. But have you got any kind of top tips for schools on how to keep all their children, all different abilities, and even mixed age classes together in one classroom?
I think the key is daily review, reflection on what their practice has been, and I always say have that expectation that everyone does the graft. So I think in the past we sort of said, oh, so and so doesn't need to do that. Now it's like, well, no, they have to do that. And then they can move on. Our approach is when you're teaching them a new concept, everyone's together. So everyone has exposure to that concept, everyone works on that concept at the same level. Some children might have some more support, i.e. one-to-one, or more support in more concrete equipment, or they might have some pre-teaching going on.
Okay, great.
So that they can access that new learning better. So we do that, and then once you've done that whole concept, that's when sort of your fluidity of pace. Some children might go further, some children might do it in a more complex way, other children might be staying a bit more on the basics to get that secure.
I would say that was one of the biggest challenges, wasn't it, at the beginning when we put it in place, was that, well, what are your higher ability children going to do? Well, they're going to stay together with everybody, and we want to ensure that we embed those concepts, and they really do have a firm foundation to then broaden the horizons.
And during that they deepen.
Yeah, they do.
They need to deepen their understanding and knowledge and being able to talk about it, and it's that expectation of, no, just getting the right answer isn't enough. You've got to show us the reasoning, and
they have to draw it, they have to show it, they have to be able to explain it, not just to me, to the partner. So when we talk about mixed abilities, we do have higher ability children, or who we would perceive to be higher ability children, strategically sat next to children that we feel that they can push and move on, and that does brings that child along with them, but also the child that's explaining, it deepens their understanding, and the class teacher does have to oversee and listen to make sure that what they are saying is right. But ultimately they have to stay together. So a big one when starting it is slow down, keep everybody together, and when you're doing the Let's Learn stage, make sure that you go deep and allow them to practice and use the resources.
Absolutely.
Don't just think, oh well, I know they could do that, let's move on.
It's a strange feeling to start off with when you first do it, because we've been teaching for years and we're used to doing introduction, everyone do, now everyone go off. And
when I started teaching them, all my training was about the strategy, doing all that, and it was very much mental oral and then 40 minutes and then plenary. So it's very been structure, and I think that's been kind of embedded in every teacher in the land now. So breaking away from that mould is
very peculiar,
very difficult. And
it feels like you're herding sheep. And to stand at the front and do that sort of, I'm talking, you're teaching, you're doing, it feels weird to start off with, but you've got to get through it. And I've spoken to other teachers in the school, and they've said, I cannot imagine going back to how it was.
Really?
They can't imagine teaching in a different way. And we've seen the approach to this sort of teaching creeping into other subjects in the school as well, not just maths. Our comprehension, our English reading comprehension, you would argue that it was a mastery approach because everyone is working at the same level, approaching
really
those things. So we're seeing it sneaking out into other subjects.
I guess talking about comprehension, did you find any sort of challenges around transition from foundation to year 1 or year 2 to year 3? So thinking maybe about the language, or
that's been a big thing, and I think lots of people who I've talked to about it, particularly in the lower year groups, is they say, well, they can't read it.
Right.
They can't read the text, they can't read the books, they can't access that, and you just go, well, you read it to them.
So
you read it together.
How do you do that?
It's that, well, you just tackle it and approach it, and some of the questions, really quite complicated in terms of the language and the comprehension, and It's but you've just sort of got to bite the bullet, take it nice and slowly, and lots of talking.
You have to persevere with it ultimately, and you've got to get your classroom right. And again, your positioning of where your children are, your tables, you do have to think carefully about it. As a whole school, we do a lot of choral reading, so we read together chorally. Independent reading, where the child will read out aloud, and modelled talk as well, where the teacher will be reading it to them. So linking in with our comprehension, you do have to persevere, and it's about modelling and making sure that everybody does it together.
And picking it apart. I remember the good old days of where you used to do rucksack, read, underline, and all that sort of thing. And it's like, well, that doesn't work. And so introducing ideas of reading the problem and saying, right, what do you know, what don't you know? And right, what could we draw it? And part whole, what would that look as a model with that problem?
Definitely.
So you get other strategies in rather than a rucksack which fails quite consistently, particularly on more challenging questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great, thank you. And so you've chosen to adopt Inspire Maths as your programme of choice. Just wondered what attracted you to Inspire when you were making that initial decision?
The challenge of it. Compared to the others that were out there, we wanted something that would push the children that we deem to be greater depth, but also the structure of it and how well it had been thought out, and the way that the objectives lead on throughout each unit, but also that spiral curriculum, so where something may be taught in book 3 then reappears in book 5, but through a different kind of unit.
And I liked the sort of flexibility of it. There is a real structure there, and you can't dip in here and there and everywhere, but there is a flexibility within each of those units. And I didn't want a programme where a teacher felt, right, this is week 2, I have to be on such and such a question.
Definitely.
We wanted to move our teachers away from feeling the pressure of having to push rather than lead the children through the learning. And it was that flexibility of saying, right, I've only got so far with this lesson, but I feel that children need something more. And it's not as structured as day 1, week 1, you're doing this. Day 2, week 2, you're doing this.
You need that teacher creativity.
You need teacher creativity, and I presume with all schemes you have to adapt them anyway. Because all schools are different. So it was just to be honest, really, really good maths that it showed, and also the CPD that you actually get, not just from OU, but from having the textbook in front of you. And the guide, the teacher guidance around it, it sort of helps upscale our teachers' mathematical knowledge.
Really enhance the knowledge, vocabulary, the way that they teach is much more thought out. So on the whole, it's just...
and I'd done a little bit of research, because it was part of the Maths Book project, I think alongside another one, and I'd done some work looking at people's comments on various different forums, and the comments were, it's aspirational. It's aspirational. It's challenging, and we wanted that aspiration for our school, and that's what we wanted.
We don't just want our children to
pass the test, be prepared for a test. We want them to have lifelong skills, and the harder something is, the better, because that pushes everybody. It pushes your pupils, it pushes your staff. And that's what we wanted. We want mathematicians, don't we?
Absolutely. That's all we strive for, are mathematicians. We want to create mathematicians, and they, at whatever rate of their learning and their ability, we want them to be the best mathematician that they can be. So ultimately, yes, we have to get them through a test at the end of Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 1, but for us as maths leads, that isn't the be all and end all.
No. You know, it's that child focus, like you say. And talking of children, how do they find the mastery approach in general? How have they reacted?
They love it, don't they? Absolutely love it. I think being able to kind of play with the equipment kind of breaks away from that mould of we're doing maths and the sit down, let's do kind of, you know, the exploration around what they can do and the activities.
I think a lot of the paired work gives a lot of children who aren't necessarily as confident as others with maths a level of confidence to be able to do it. And also they see themselves doing exactly the same work as everybody else. So, you know, you have kids coming out who I know that I've worked with and struggled with, and they go, I really like maths, I can do maths.
That's so nice to hear.
The whole culture has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it became a higher priority within school. There was a buzz around maths. It wasn't maths, it was Inspire Maths. The children were talking about Inspire Maths.
Yeah.
So we've kind of had to backtrack and we just do maths.
That's what we do.
Yeah, but there was a real buzz around it, introducing, you know, the pot hole and the bar model and so on. You know, these things have been around for years and years and years. We just haven't been doing it.
Yeah.
So when we introduced it to our children, it was new. So, you know, and there was that buzz there for them. But the self-confidence and I'd say the resilience as well of being able to tackle a problem and sticking with it, you know, and not being afraid of failing, and, you know, going back to it and going back and, you know, keep having a go. And that paired work, I think, is so important. Yeah, because, you know, you can talk about where it's gone wrong and why it's gone wrong, and I think that's one of the biggest shifts in my teaching anyway, is focusing more on the misconceptions and why somebody's got something wrong instead of how we get it right.
The answer, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And as you say, the most important thing is developing great mathematicians, but lots of teachers do feel the pressure of assessment. So just briefly, you know, what are your thoughts on assessing for mastery, and what kind of outcomes have you seen since using Inspire and the mastery approach?
Well, this year our Key Stage 2 SATs were the best that we've ever had. We had 95% as expected and 35% greater depth. There were 3 pupils out of the 60 that didn't achieve, but I think all got around 98 scale score. Our average point score was 108. So we were very, very impressed, very happy with our results, and a lot of hard work and dedication has gone in over the last few years. So we, you know, it was great to see an impact on that. Assessment wise, we look at the assessment books, don't we, that we've got in classes. We use them as
AFL.
As an AFL, yeah. So an assessment for learning and pulling questions out of them. It doesn't really fit in our timetable to be able to use those books as an assessment document, and we've also got our own assessment, summative assessment that we use in school. So balancing that,
all those things combined,
you've got to, you know, what the school priorities are and what your priorities for maths are. You've got to get that kind of merged with them both.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Judith and Liam. It's been so fantastic talking to you both and hearing about your mastery journey. So that brings us to an end of our Facebook Live session today, but if you have any questions, please do pop them in the comments box and we'll make sure we get back to you. Thank you.